All right, let's talk about something that can look like total gibberish, but is actually the secret key to your entire AWS setup. I'm talking about the Amazon Resource Name, or RAN. Specifically, we're going to dive deep into the RANs for API Gateway, the service that helps us build and manage all our APIs.
I mean, come on. You've been there, right? Staring at an AWS IAM policy, your eyes glazing over, just trying to figure out what in the world you're actually giving permissions to. It's a rite of passage for anyone working in the cloud. And honestly, it can be a real headache.
Yeah, it's usually because of something that looks exactly like this. Just a long, tangled mess of colons and slashes. At first glance, you might think it's impossible to make sense of. But what if I told you that by the end of this, you'll be able to read this thing like a simple sentence? Let's do it. Let's break this thing down. Okay, first things first. We're going to look at the basic anatomy of an RTN. We'll take it apart, piece by piece, so you can see how it all fits together. So what is an ARN, really? The simplest way to think about it is like a unique street address. In the huge, sprawling city that is AWS, an ARN is the one and only address that points to one specific thing, whether it's a Lambda function, an S3 bucket, or in our case, an API gateway endpoint. Every single ARN is built from the same 6 parts, no exceptions. It always kicks off with ARN, pretty straightforward. Then you've got the partition, which, let's be honest, is almost always just AWS. Next is the service, and for us, that's going to be API Gateway. Then comes the region and the account ID. And here's a little quirk. For API Gateway management, that account ID is often just left blank. We'll get back to that. Finally, you have the resource path, and this is where all the juicy details live. In that last part, the resource path, just think of it like a file path on your computer, or URL. It's just a way to drill down and pinpoint the exact thing you're talking about, from the broad API down to a single specific method. All right, now that we've got the basic structure down, we can get into the really interesting stuff, the patterns. The first big one you need to know is the difference between ARNs for HTTP APIs and those for the classic REST APIs. The differences are subtle, but they matter a lot. And here's the big reveal. The difference is tiny, but it's everything. It all comes down to one little word in that resource path. If you're looking at an HTTP or a WebSockets API, you're going to see /APIs/. If it's a classic REST API, you'll see /REST APIs/. That's it. That's your first major clue. So let's make this super simple. Here's your rule of thumb. C/APIs, you're working with an HTTP or WebSocket API. C/REST APIs, that's a REST API. Just that one keyword gives you a ton of context before you even look at anything else. Okay, here's another awesome pattern you'll start seeing everywhere once you know to look for it. It's the singular versus plural trick. If the path just ends with a plural, like stages, that means you're talking about all the stages in that API. But if you see it get specific, like stages/prod, you're targeting just that one single stage. And from a security perspective, this is huge, right? It's how you make sure you don't accidentally give someone the keys to the entire kingdom. And the best part is, this isn't just for stages. This same logic applies all over the place. For routes, authorizers, deployments, models, you name it. Once you get this one pattern down, you've basically cracked the code for understanding the scope of a policy. Okay, so like with any good system, there are a couple of exceptions to the rule. We've got to talk about 2 special cases, custom domain names and this other service called Execute API. First up, custom domains. These ARNs have their own unique structure. You'll see a /domain name /path, and they're used for one thing, managing how a pretty URL like api.mycoolsite.com connects to your actual API. Now, this next one is super, super important to get right. So far, everything with the API Gateway service has been about managing the API, building it, deploying it, changing settings. Execute API is completely different. This one is all about permission to use the API, to actually call an endpoint. So the second you spot Execute API in that service slot, you immediately know you're not looking at a policy for a developer or an admin. You're looking at a policy for a client, some user or app that needs to actually invoke the API. And the RN structure reflects that. It's usually much simpler, pointing right to the API, stage, and the path. And here's another dead giveaway.
Remember how we said the management ARNs often leave the account ID blank? Well, execute API RNs never do. They always have the AWS account ID filled in. It's a really simple trick to immediately tell what kind of permission you're looking at.
Okay, so let's put it all together. We've covered the basics, the different types, and the exceptions. Now we can boil it all down into a super simple cheat sheet for decoding any ARN you come across.
It really just comes down to a simple 3-step process. Step 1, check the service. Is it AP gateway, meaning management, or execute API for invocation? Step 2, check the API type prefix. Is it /APS/ for HTTP and WebSocket, or /REST API/ for REST? And finally, step 3, check the scope. Is it plural for all resources or singular for just one specific resource?
That's it. Just 3 things. Remember that crazy long string from the beginning? If you apply these 3 simple checks to it, it's not so crazy anymore. It actually starts to make perfect sense.
Seriously, if you just master these 3 patterns, you've unlocked the ability to read pretty much any API gateway ARN you will ever see. That string of characters that used to be so intimidating, now it's just a clear, simple address that tells you exactly what you need to know.
So we've cracked the code on API gateway ARNs. The only question left is, what AWS puzzle should we decode next?